Welcome to Conversations from St. Norbert College, a program that invites you into discussions taking place in your community on today's local and global issues. Now, your host for Conversations from St. Norbert College, the Dean and Academic Vice President of the college, Michael Marsden.
Good evening. My name is Michael Marsden, and I am your host for this edition of Conversations from St. Norbert College. Our featured guest this evening is Abbot Jerome Tremel, O.Praem, former Abbot of St. Norbert Abbey. After graduating from Central Catholic High School in Green Bay, he entered the novitiate at St. Norbert Abbey in De Pere, Wisconsin. He graduated from St. Norbert College with a bachelor's degree in philosophy in 1951 and was ordained a priest in June of 1954. Abbot Tremel followed his St. Norbert College education with a Master of Science degree from Purdue University and then a Ph.D. also from Purdue in mathematics education in 1963. He went on to become an associate professor of mathematics and chair of the mathematics department here at St. Norbert College. In 1970, he was named abbot at St. Norbert Abbey. Abbot Tremel's major concern at that time was to build the structures for and to encourage the implementation of the Second Vatican Council's constructs in the Order's Constitution, as developed and approved in two sessions of the Chapter of Renewal in 1968 and 1970 for the Abbey. He was active in both sessions. Abbot Tremel, it's a pleasure to welcome you to our program. We're very pleased and honored to have you here.
Thank you.
Wonder if you'd share with the audience what it was like to be a student here, though, at St. Norbert College. First of all, as a student, then a faculty member within a relatively short period of time there. Yeah. And what was it like in the late 50s and late 40s and early 50s, actually, as a student?
Yeah. Well, because I was a seminarian, I was a member of the order. My experience as a student was not typical because we were very much restricted in our relationships with other students.
Yeah.
And so the relationships that I had with so-called lay people, or for instance, as a lab partner in a physics course or something like that, or meeting people in a classroom, where you're taking courses one after the other and you meet the same people. But it was a very small campus. It was, the education, I think, was fairly staid. Nothing very challenging about it for me. We had an awful lot of exercises that we had to do in the Abbey itself, religious exercises. And so, we prayed 7 times a day, and so that didn't leave very much study time.
I guess not. So, and it was before the campus was coeducational.
Oh, absolutely. Quite a bit before there was any significant number of women on the campus. So it was an all-male institution. As I say, not terribly challenging. Didn't require a great deal of work. Maybe if I had worked a little harder, I would have gotten better grades than I did. But at any rate, we were all asked to do, are compelled to do a philosophy major. And philosophy is about the bottom of my preferences as an area of study. I actually preferred mathematics. And the mathematics teachers at the time were the bright spots in my life. People like Norm Watermullen and Larry Berner and a fellow by the name of Rollinger, I forget what his first name was, and a number of others. And I found that the mathematics courses were much more interesting, and they were more challenging for me. So I did that on the side simply because I knew and was pleased with the prospect of teaching mathematics.
And you again went on to teach first at Premontre High School.
First was at St. Norbert High School, which was the high school on the campus. And we did that while we studied 4 years of theology.
I see.
And part-time, maybe 1 or 2 classes a day, something like that. I taught plane geometry and a little bit of algebra during that time. I went to Prémontré in 1955. The building was brand new. It was the successor to Central Catholic High School.
Where you had attended yourself.
Where I had attended and from which I was graduated. And so it was a new building. The discipline was very tight for the students and for the Norbertines who taught there. We all lived together at St. Michael Priory, and again with a very stringent and very heavy schedule.
Interesting.
So, but I taught at first just freshman algebra, and then eventually advanced algebra and physics as the need arose. And I had the chance then to go back to grad school.
At Purdue.
At Purdue. At my final exam for the master's degree, when I was finished, the chair of that little group said, now we have a program for college teachers of mathematics in a doctoral program. Would you be interested? And I said, I think I'd be interested, but I'm not the person to make that decision. Well, who is? So I made sure that I wrote Abbot Kileen's name out very clearly and his address and all that sort of thing.
You wanted to contact him.
And that's the way it turned out. So
you went on to get your Ph.D.
In the fall of 1960, I started and finished that in 63, came to the college, started teaching, and I think I was here one semester when Father Szymowski, who had been the chair of the math department, decided to turn that over to me.
One semester.
One semester, yeah. A lot of experience, of course, you know.
Now you taught on the faculty for 6 years here, according to what I was reading.
From 63 to 69, and then I was elected coadjutor abbot to Abbot Kileen, who had announced his intention to retire on his birthday, January 6th in 1970.
And that's when you took over the...
That's when I took over the order job.
So now when you were on the faculty here, though, in the 60s, it was still heavily Norbertine in terms of the faculty.
There were
lay people, but still
there were lay people, and especially in 1963. 1963, I think, was the opening of what was then called Lorraine and Madeleine. I don't know if it still is.
Yes, it still is, yes.
L&M for short. Yeah. And that was for women. So were there 150 or more new freshman women admitted to the college that year. And 10 new faculty members,
My goodness.
of which 2 were Norbertines. Myself and a fellow math person, Father Nick Nerschel.
So it really was a watershed year.
It was a watershed year because it added some very significant non-Norbertine faculty. I hate the word lay, by the way.
The non-Norbertine.
It's non-Norbertine, and but they were, I think, without exception, very professional people, very well educated, and I think that was a significant change, simply because they were the type of people that simply wouldn't abide the staid kind of authoritarian regime at the college at the time.
Which leads me to the next question, which has to do with campus law has you as one of the architects of the faculty constitution, which we now know is incorporated in the faculty handbook.
Yeah.
What led you and others like probably Father Calavecchia would be a guess, to get together and work on that?
Well, I'll tell you who they were. First of all, the committee was formed by the then dean, who was Father Vincent Delires. This must have been in either 65 or 66. I forget the dates anymore. But at any rate, there was a small committee. Father Joe Dorff, first of all, Father Delires, who was dean.
Sure.
Then Father Joseph Dorff, who was in the psych department. A fellow by the name of Bob Padden, who was in the history department. The PMS&T at the time, Clell Babler, the military
science
person,
officer.
yeah, and myself. And we met maybe 6 or 8 times during the summer, and then presented that we called a meeting of all the faculty members and proposed that we form this association, and under the Constitution as we presented it. I don't remember exactly the details of the conversation there, but the faculty accepted it, they were ready for it, and it gave the faculty a kind of autonomy. And I have to say, frankly, that the constitutions were very biased against the administration. There was a clause in there, that's why I hoped you could find a copy in the archives. There was a clause in there that said, if the faculty, with deliberation, passes a motion and it's sent to the administration, it has to be accepted or denied in 48 hours.
48. I've actually heard. I haven't seen that copy, but I've heard about it.
Yeah, and what we would have done if it had been turned down, I don't remember what the details were, but that was softened over the years, of course. But I think the intention was that here we are, a bunch of growingly professional people, and with a sense of what was important about what we did, with a sheer conviction that the student body was the primary group on the campus, the most important group on the campus. The faculty was the second most important group on the campus. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any teaching or learning going on. And then the administration was there to make that all go nicely oiled, nicely working nicely and funded properly and all of that. And so I think we kind of took hold of the college, really, and that was consistent with the kinds of things that were in the air at the time. And I'm not talking about allergens. I'm talking about the kind of democratic structures in the United States.
And the anti-war demonstrations were going on.
And all kinds of things were going on in the society. Besides that, there were significant Norbertines who were part of a group called the College of Chaplains, who worked under the assumption that we were to be a college. Collegiality was part of what came out of the Vatican II Council for the Catholic Church, and was absorbed very, very enthusiastically by the order constitutions. Among the other things, subsidiarity and communio and prayer and all that sort of thing. And so there was this atmosphere that we inherited. It was just around us all over. And so we it was with that kind of notion, I think, that kind of motivation. At the time, there were something like 36 Norbertines
On the faculty.
40% of whom had advanced degrees. And so that number grew just a little bit, the number with advanced degrees. And that had a lot to do with changing the complexion of the college.
I'm sure it did.
And then, of course, the student body increased from 1963 on. It had been increasing. The war came in there. That messed things up a little bit. But we had, during my time at the college, we had a great number of veterans who really provided kind of stability to the student body.
Sure.
So it wasn't such a fun campus as it might have become. A party campus at all times.
You suggested that in preparation for this interview that I read an article entitled, and I'm just quoting from my notes here, "The Easter Address to the Faculty by the President of a Catholic Women's College," which is the title of the essay. And it's in a book by John Bellairs entitled Saints Fujita and Other Parodies.
Yeah.
And because you saw, I think, in that story parallels to St. Norbert College, at least at that time when you were a faculty member here in the 60s. Talk about that a little bit in terms of why you see that to be such an interesting parallel.
Well, first of all, I see it because the copy that I had, I think there's several editions of this book.
I got the same edition in the library.
Yeah, has a picture of a faculty meeting.
Ah, yes.
Now, we didn't have a Mother Superior like that over here with her. You notice her council.
Or council, yes.
Or her advisors. And they're all sisters. And here's the sister president. And all the sisters are sitting in a row, in the front row. And all the so-called lay faculty.
Are behind
Do you notice all the variety of chairs in there?
All different chairs.
They're all, but the sisters are all separated, if you notice, by, I don't know whether it's a wall or a curtain or something, maybe the chair backs or whatever it was. Anyway, there was a very definite, I think, kind of second-class citizenship that the so-called lay faculty experienced. First of all, the salaries weren't very, they weren't very good, really, basically. And the Norbertines didn't get a salary. There was a stipend that was sent to the houses in which they lived, but at any rate, the salary wasn't any kind of concern for the Norbertine faculty necessarily, except that we became very friendly with the non-Norbertine faculty. Okay. And that kind of sense grew so that there was less and less distinction between Norbertines and non-Norbertines. But there are the parallels that I know of or I've read in that parody are things like a remark that's made about taking tenure away from.
I remember that from the
yes.
Yeah.
And that's something I went through myself as chair of the Mass Department, because one of the members of the Mass Department had spent a whole year on a sabbatical doing some work in computer science, which was just a beginning sort of thing here. This whole thing that we're sitting in just wasn't possible. Anyway, computers were just coming in. Father Nerschel was the first person to teach a computer course, which was mostly computer language. Eventually we had a small mainframe. And this faculty member used his sabbatical year He took a year at half salary, which was the going thing at the time, to get some expertise in computer science, among other things. And so when time came for his contract to be renewed, he wrote to, and this had to be done with the president, who oversaw all of the salary stuff.
That's Father Burke.
Father Burke, yep. And so he wrote a letter that Father Burke didn't think was all that humorous, I guess. In fact, he took offense. And so he met with me and the dean at the time and said that he wasn't going to renew his contract. And we both reminded him that he was a tenured faculty member. He had been granted tenure by the president himself. And so we said, well, you can't do that. He's tenured. I'll take away his tenure.
That's what the
Well, try to explain. He was upset, and I understand his point of view. But that's, technically
not possible.
Not possible. It was things like that, and then the whole notion that you could replace all the non-Norbertines with Norbertines.
That was part of
that was part of the sort of thing. In fact, I think that lasted for quite a long time, in the sense that if there were an opening in the faculty, a Norbertine would, and you had a number of applications, non-Norbertines or Norbertines, that the Norbertine would be given preference.
I see. Okay.
And secondly, if they really wanted the non-Norbertine, they would take on the Norbertine also.
In addition. Okay.
In addition, simply to keep the Norbertine presence.
Right. We have the opposite problem now with hardly any Norbertine presence in the faculty.
The problem is,
there's some wonderful exceptions. But,
there's no pool of Norbertines available at the moment.
When you look back at your years as a faculty member, here at the institution, what stands out as maybe one of the best accomplishments? I mean, I think establishing the faculty constitution has to be probably one of them, but are there others?
Well, first of all, I mean, it's not just the constitutions, but it's the fact that the faculty took hold.
Right. Had a voice.
Voice and an interest and
ownership.
Ownership, yeah. And that's very important in any kind of enterprise. I think the other thing was the professionalization of faculty and staff. Mm-hmm. We had the first non-Norbertine president of the college was a man by the name of Bob Christen. And he was here for 3 years, and he resigned after 3 years, and he went to a number of different places, and I can remember being asked by him to write recommendations for him. And I think one of the significant contributions he made was he had a very sharp sense of the need for second-level administrative people, mm-hmm. vice presidential types like yourself. Mm-hmm. And it just wasn't somebody that was filling in a job. We had a very professional dean for a lot of years. We had a very professional finance officer for many years. And I think that tradition continues, and it's an important tradition because it keeps the place running.
Well, I think that rather than just have people that are for a couple of years in a row, and then go on to something else. Yeah. I need to remind our viewers that you're watching Conversations from St. Norbert College. Our very special guest this evening is Abbot Jerome Tremel, a former abbot of the St. Norbert Abbey. And we're talking about his experience here as a student, as a faculty member, and later actually as a trustee for the college. you told me in an earlier conversation we had, actually, out at the Abbey, that I think it was when you were abbot, actually, and you were meeting with the then President Tom Mannion, that he had actually, in a complaint he gave you, he was actually giving you a compliment. You want to share that with us?
It wasn't exactly when I was abbot. It was when I was chair of the board. Chairing the board. I was elected to the board in 1983, and I served for about altogether 16 years on the board, and the last 4 as the chair. And I would have practically a monthly meeting with Tom, and Tom had a lot of ideas, and he would kind of try to develop them and then present them to the faculty, like maybe something like a graduate program in something or other. And the faculty would turn them down. And he'd tell me about that, and he'd say, and it's your fault.
It's your fault.
And I said, yes, it is. I accept that, and I'm very proud of it. and I stick with the with that sense that the faculty does have, should have the say in what kinds of programs are at the college. And so he was always very gracious about that. But I think he meant it. I think he meant that it was my fault that the faculty would turn stuff down. I started something, in other words, that he had a body that he had to go to get his ideas implemented. And
so you look upon that as one of your great accomplishments.
I think it is. I think it fits with my notion of that hierarchy: students, faculty, administration.
Interesting.
And whether or not that's legitimate or not, I suspect I'll go to my grave with that conviction.
Right. Well, I think a lot of people would agree with you.
Yeah, but at any rate, that's I think that's one of the things that I was probably, if I were proud of anything, I'd be proud of that one, and I kept being reminded about it as well. So it kept me.
It's interesting. I sort of wonder if you could just take a couple of minutes to compare and contrast. I mean, you had 13 years as abbot, and a rather major time of change for the Catholic Church. And then you follow that with 16 years on the board of the college, including, as you said, chair of the board for 4 years. What were the comparable challenges of those two roles? Because in a way, as chairman of the board, you were subsequently later really reporting to the abbot in a way as chair of the board, because the abbot retained reserve powers.
Yeah.
But from those two different points of view, what would you think of the major challenges?
Well, but for instance, there wouldn't be a lot of things that the board approved that would have to be brought to the
Correct.
abbot.
There are very few things.
I mean, the reserve powers are very limited. They have mostly to do with finances and the possibility of liability.
And mission of the college.
Mission of the college, whether it's consistent. And also, for instance, when the board submits a candidate, for instance, for a trustee,
president and trustee,
anything like that, I'm almost sure it extends to vice presidential people as well. But it's that kind of thing because it is the responsibility of the sponsoring institution to maintain the sense of mission, to retain, for instance, if at all possible, to retain the religious dimension, and that is of prime importance, at least to some people.
Sure. Well, sounds like you have a robust future ahead of you as well. I want to thank our special guest, Abbot Jerome Tremel, for sharing his insights as an experience with us this evening. So please join us for future programs as we continue our exploration of the world of ideas. Until then, I'm Michael Marsden for Conversations from St. Norbert College.